Hello and welcome to Tickets Still Available. Today I am joined by Jennifer Jean. She is an extraordinary woman who, among other things, is a writer, filmmaker, entrepreneur, as well as a comedian, to name just a few. She has had an extraordinary life where she met a wonderful man called Eduardo Garcia, who was unfortunate enough to, when in the wilderness, he came across what appeared to be just a dead bear, but sadly there was a ancient junction box underneath it that was still alive from like the 60s, which electrocuted him with 2,400 volts. He miraculously survived, and whilst in hospital, Gian helped him with the recovery as a full-time carer essentially in the hospital. But they weren't going out. They were going out when they worked on a boat together. But this was after that. So I join her where she talks about that experience, her life in general, and most importantly of all, tea. So please welcome me in welcoming her to the podcast. Is this your first time in Edinburgh?
So I first came in 2019 just to be an audience member at the Fringe. Okay. And I actually hadn't come back since then. Obviously, it stopped for COVID and things like that, and then just hadn't made it back. So this is my first time here performing as part of the Fringe.
So how long have you lived in America?
I first kind of started to go out to America and live there, I think it was about 2010. So yeah, a while now. Yeah, 16 years or so.
How have you found the UK? Like, have you lived here before you went to Edinburgh, or did you just straight come off the plane to Edinburgh to do your show?
Pretty much straight off the plane. So my parents still live in Dorset on the south coast of England, where I grew up. And so, yeah, I stopped in there for a week, honestly, to get over the jet lag, because I didn't want to, fly straight in and then be doing a show with the added, nightmare of jet lag. So that was quite fun just to go and see parents and things. So I got to hang out a little bit in the UK, and I feel like I do the usual, that everybody does it, straight to Marks and Spencer's and hit up all the English treats and all that type of thing.
Have you found a massive decline that the internet was telling you about, like how London has fallen, or is it just a bit meh?
I actually didn't go to London. I just went down to Dorset, and I didn't notice too much down there, I'm honest. It's actually been really interesting in Edinburgh, I think, because I don't think they maybe prepare for the Fringe onslaught of people with all the trash and everything. So I feel like sometimes maybe that feels like temporarily a bit strange. But overall, I mean, I love the UK. I miss the UK when I'm in America. I'm definitely not one of those Brits that's like, I'm really glad I left. I love it, and definitely miss all the cool stuff.
So what is it you're doing in America? Like, what's your day to day?
Yeah, so essentially my brother and we actually started a food company in America, which is kind of funny, I think, to the audacity of some English people that are not known for their food to go over to the States. I kind of feel like
the Britain is very underrated, because when you look at like when a lot of like chefs talk about like the basics, a lot of them are going back to old like British recipes. Like I feel like Britain and France sort of had, I don't know, a similar amount of power, but for some reason France gets all this glory and Britain gets like forgotten about.
100%. I mean, I love it, but I feel like just generally as a stereotype, we're, not known for that. And but what's awful about American food that maybe you already know, but there's about 300 or more chemicals that the US allows in their food, which is banned in the EU and Australia and pretty much everywhere else in the world other than the United States. So my brother and I essentially started this new meals company. It's called Proper Good, so quite English, with the idea of following EU rules and regulations.
Okay, interesting. Because I see some pushback, some like people are pointing out a lot of the chemicals that some influencers talk about aren't as bad, and that's the European Union has some of them. But if you're just sort of focusing specifically on stuff the European Union allows, it's an interesting angle.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I think when you just look at what you want to put in your body as well, you start to, I feel, at least for me personally, I'm happy to eat technically unhealthy food, like loads of sugar, loads of fat, and obviously enjoy food. But when it's not actually food and it's just full of these like crazy chemicals and things, then you're like start, edging in the wrong direction. So our food is super healthy and way better for you than you can kind of get elsewhere on the shelves in the US. Because my brother and I, honestly, we moved out there and we were just like, why can't we just get easy, healthy food? And so that's why we started Proper Good, and now we sell that all over the States now. So
wow.
That is what I do with my day to day. So actually here it's been kind of interesting. I just had a packaging nightmare with a new series of meals. So I've been working on that this morning and then going to shift into my show and work on all my changes that I want to make tonight's show even better than hopefully the one last night. So
is that the company that Eduardo was working with? Are they similar or related, or is that how you got to meet him?
Yeah, so it's Eduardo, but no, actually it's just totally different. So the way I got to meet him was, so I went to university in the UK, and I'm sure like most people had debts and all that type of thing afterwards, and I learned about the yachting industry. I don't know if you know much about that, but basically obviously all the billionaires and that. They just like, all the billionaires and multimillionaires, whatever, they own these massive boats, massive yachts, and they're private, family owned. So it's different to like the cruise industry. Yeah. And if you know anybody that wants to just go and bank some cash, I highly recommend going on it, because once you're there, you have no expenses. They pay for everything, including your toothpaste, for example. But you're living at sea, and you're basically a glorified servant in a way, like you're just at these people's beck and call all day, every day. But in terms of getting out debt, great. So anyway, so I joined that as essentially the lowest level, which was a deckhand. So I was just working on deck, like cleaning and taking the guests wake surfing and stuff.
So you had no like ship experience before this?
No, all you have to do is just one thing called a STCW 95, which is basically a safety qualification. So it's like medical training and firefighting training, stuff like that. Because obviously you're at sea, you're completely by yourselves. So you do that. That's super affordable. And so I did that, and then you just get chucked out at sea. So I actually flew out to the Bahamas and joined this boat in Nassau in the Bahamas. And Eduardo was a chef on that boat. And so that's how I met him. So he was obviously working on there, and he was just making incredible food. And we got together on that boat, and we both wanted to get back to land. So I started writing him this cooking show, this like outdoor adventure cooking show. And we got so lucky. Basically, I bought a bunch of books from top film courses, whatever. We spent all the money we had on a camera, and we filmed this thing. And then we pitched it to the owner of the yacht, and then he became our business partner. And then we got signed by agents and all that type of stuff. And so we shifted from being like working for these people to kind of working with them on this new project. And so that's Eduardo and I. We then got back to Montana, back to land, which is where he lived. And we're working on the cooking show. It just got picked up by a network, and it was awesome. And then he was injured and everything fell apart. And that's basically what my show is about. It's like a love story, a story of friendship, a friendship of recovery, and essentially just me being a fish out of water, being thrown into the deep end as a caregiver to somebody with a major injury and helping them get out the other side.
Because I've watched the film. It's something I had never heard of. Was it big in America, or was this? Because in the UK, it seemed, in Ireland, it seems like I haven't heard of it at all. It's just a very incredible story.
Yeah, it was pretty big in America. We opened the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. That was our big opening night. That was really cool. It was in a beautiful theatre of like 2,600 people. So it was like a really good energy that day. Then we did a massive film tour. It basically toured all the US film festivals. And then it had a release on Hulu for a few years. So that was the main platform it was on in the States. And then after Hulu, it moved to Amazon. And so you can see it on Amazon in most countries, I think. I seem to get a weirdly high number of messages from Australia. I don't really know why, because it's all over the US and all over the, the UK and Europe and stuff. But for whatever reason, New Zealand and Australia area, I tend to get a lot of messages from. But yeah,
because I tried to watch it on Apple, but it wasn't available here, so I got it on Vimeo.
Oh, random. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think it is on Amazon still in the UK at the moment. But yeah, so it's a great movie, and the best thing about it, I think, is just so many people reaching out about how it's helped them in some way. Because what was particularly cool was, because I had been filming him for the cooking show, I just had all of this high quality footage of him before the injury, whereas usually
that's the incredible thing. Very rarely do you have like so much like HD footage of someone tragically before such a horrific event to make the contrast sort of more harrowing.
100%. I mean, nearly always, obviously, it's this is a few photos of somebody before the injury, or maybe a few home videos or something. And so when I was in the ICU, and I mentioned this in the show, of just having that moment of realization of just, wait a minute, I've got cameras, I've been filming, I'm just going to film this. And I basically said to him, let's film it to make this documentary idea. But I'm going to kind of keep these hard drives very close to me. And if you want to delete everything, we can, type of thing. Just that option of let's record it, because we won't be able to re-record, obviously, your recovery. But also, obviously you've seen the film, so there is some sensitive stuff in there. Obviously it shows some of his injuries, and we didn't put too much of the super graphic stuff in the documentary. We tried to find that balance. It is still
quite graphic at
It is still quite graphic. Yes, it is.
So basically what's happening, was it an old piece of like infrastructure, like an old electrical junction box that had just been left for the elements?
Yes, so essentially the high line story is a, like, back in the day, like in the 1960s or something like that, they were going to build like a village of at least a bunch of houses like halfway up this mountain. Randomly, that mountain's called Electric Peak, which is hilarious. And so it was going to get built. Plans obviously went away. Just those lines, they just remained live, but just got completely forgotten about. And so over the decades and decades, 50 or so years later is when he got injured. It was just so rusted out, and this bear essentially had found it. And just like a top tip is, we thought that was super random. Obviously, it is insane that a bear is attracted to electricity. The bear touches it, then he sees the dead bear. When he goes near it, he gets electrocuted as well. But what we actually learned is it's happened quite a lot. There's been cases in Canada of like 16 animals piled up, where one goes to like gets zapped, and then another, like a wolf, goes in to eat that, and then piles up and piles up. So a bunch of people have died where they've seen a dead deer or whatever. And so if you see a random dead animal in the woods, don't go near it. Call someone,
especially if there's infrastructure. So it's an old barreled electrical junction box. So it's something I've never seen like in UK or Ireland. It's a very unique thing. It doesn't look like anything. There doesn't seem to be any electric near it. Just like it kind of just looks like a barrel, and then with a bear in it. So he went to remove a claw, was it?
So basically so two things about that. One is it was underground power. So this is like the absolute wilderness. This is just absolutely miles away from anything.
Like, it's very picturesque Montana.
Very picturesque Montana. And in the documentary, the reconstruction that they created of it is slightly more done so that you could see it. So in the actual reality, there was snow, there was really long grasses and stuff. So you couldn't really see under the bear at all, like what was there. But you're right, it was basically like some kind of junction box, and it was not fully there anymore, because it just most of it is rusted away.
When I think junction box, I'm thinking of overhead power lines, and then there might be some infrastructure to like warn you, like give you some heads up, but it's literally just looked like a barrel in the middle of nowhere, like in a valley.
Exactly. And what's interesting too is just in Montana, we've been hiking all over these mountains. It's so fun. Just it's just all public land, so there's no trails or anything. You just start walking, and you just find stuff all the time. There's like, old cars up there. Sometimes it's really fascinating, like, trinkets that people find, and then they go and sell them in, antique stores and stuff. And there is no reason to think that wasn't anything other than just,
a bear?
Who knows? Just a random thing. Yeah, other than the bear. And I think he was just interested in the bear because he'd never seen one up close.
Because he was a very outdoors man. And still is?
Very outdoorsy. I mean, honestly, everybody is there. It's just a way of life. Like most people, like, for example, we never really buy meat out there. We would hunt for all of our meat. We'd butcher everything ourselves. It would take us like a week to like process an elk, for example, into sausages and meat and steaks or whatever. And so it is just, everyone's a hunter, everyone's a butcher, everyone's an outdoors person there, really. It's a very outdoor, live off the land type of vibe. And so so just interested, just go and check it out. And we also have some friends there that run like outdoor schools type of thing. And so if you're out, you know, I remember once I saw this beaver there's this dead beaver like on the Yellowstone River. And my friend Dan ran this school, and I just like texted him, say, hey, I found this dead beaver, are you interested? And so I just grabbed it and took it to him, and he used it as an anatomy type of class for like the kids and everything. And so it just is a bit more, I don't know what the word is really, it's just a bit more raw, a bit more wild out there. So it's not as odd, I guess, as it might at first appear.
Coming across this harrowing event, so he's lost his arm, and he loses a lot of his torso. He also, we find out he has cancer. With all of this horror, why are you doing a stand-up show about it?
I think, well, a couple of reasons, I guess. One was I got into stand-up during looking after him, because what actually happened was I found out he'd been cheating on me before the injury.
So you were going out over 2 years and he was cheating the entire time, it seems.
Yes, I think it was actually a bit longer than that, but it was years of just lies.
Because he is a very charismatic, dreamy man with a lot of talent.
Indeed. And so he found it easy to cheat, I guess. And, you know, basically I'd left and then got the call from his family, basically, that something had happened. And so when I got to see him, it was so intense. Like, his injuries were so intense, and it was just a moment of like, for whatever reason, I've not bothered by hospitals, and I love science, and I was just like, I can handle this, so I'm just going to look after you and make sure you're all right. And so I stayed, and when I was going, because it was in the ICU, then in a hospital, and then it was years of just back and forth surgeries for all of the reconstruction. And so during that time, a lot of the times I was doing like 4 hours a day of just wound care, just literal wound care. It just took so long. Anyway, so I just started to get into stand-up comedy to just have a little focus on me, just something that was separate. It wasn't work. It was just something to put my mind into. And then what happened with the documentary was I tried to get funding for it, and the only way I could get funding was if I signed away all my rights. So I had to then sign away all my stuff, sign away all my rights, and then they wanted to include me in the documentary. So I then became the caregiver in the documentary. And the director was like, hey, Jen, could you do like a set about what you've been experiencing? And at the time, I didn't really do that. I did more just about other stuff. And so I wrote this like 45-minute show, and I did it to this great audience out in Livingston, Montana. And it was just fascinating. Like, after the show, so many people wanted to share like what they'd experienced in past relationships or harrowing stuff that happened to them and things. And so from that point, I was like, okay, there's actually quite a lot of actual comedy in this. So I'm going to now craft it into, you know, more of an actual show, which is what I'm doing now. And just sharing the inner thoughts of thinking that I'm crazy, or I think I'm being cheated on, but I have no proof. And then obviously being thrown in the deep end as a caregiver, and just those relationship dynamics and all these different things. And yes, there is no comedy about the injury itself. Like, that's one of the core things, I think, is it's not making fun of someone that's been injured. It's making fun of me, you know, as a person who's been cheated on now, just like randomly spending years of my life looking after this person and learning on the job, essentially, right? What 1 minute you're dancing in the UK and you're free and you're single and you're super happy, and the next minute you're learning about prosthetics and amputation and all of these things. And it's just a wild ride. And of course he does survive, which I do let people now know at the beginning of the show, because otherwise it could be too dark. And so they know it works out in the end.
You say there's no comedy about his disabilities, but at one point you do sign off one of his testicles.
I do. I sign off one of his testicles. Yeah, so I guess in the context of that, I would say I don't make fun of the fact that, that happened to him. But both Eduardo and I do definitely laugh at the fact that he cheated on me.
Yes.
And most women that have been cheated on say, I want to cut his effing balls off. And I got to do that. So not so much about the injury, but about the circumstance of those moments.
I was going to say, the documentary makes it out like you almost put your life on hold to look after him. Do you think it was a bit like Eduardo's father, who felt like he left the family just to live on the island? Like, I kind of don't want to deal with life anymore. I'm just going to do something that I can focus on.
You mean for me to focus on, or you mean because his dad wasn't around?
It's as if like you were like, I can put the rest of my life on hold. I just have to look after him now.
I think at the time, because we still owned our home, because although we'd broken up, we still owned our home together. We owned a different business together, and we owned the television show together. Okay.
Is it the very quaint cabin we see in the one, or did you have another house?
So in the film there is the cabin. So that's just a tiny little guy that's out in the middle of nowhere. And then there's a bigger house you see in the documentary where the cat is involved. I don't know if you remember that bit. That was our actual home. And so we still had all of those things together, even though we were separated. So it was, just as we all know, messy separations when you own assets together. And so it was like, well, we still have all this stuff, obviously, where I can live. He needs a full-time caregiver. And it just worked out. Like, his family could have obviously done it as well. But at the time, one of his sisters was very young. She was a young teenager at the time. His other sister had 2 young children. So it's just so much to handle. And I could work from home. I was in the hospital when I was very young. I was in the ICU for a very long time. And so I think I'm just used to hospitals and doctors and that type of thing. And so it's just the way it shook out, honestly. And I was happy to put my life on hold, I think, because one, his injuries were so extensive.
Yes.
And secondly, I knew I was getting into, like, when he was cheating on me, like when I look back, I'm sad about those years, I think, because I lost years of my life to someone that was just lying to my face. Yeah. And that was really hard. But I think when he was injured, I knew that he'd been lying. I knew he'd been cheating. We had that thing. And this was just more like, this is someone who I know and who I've loved for years. And they couldn't really be in a worse situation. And so I made that decision to be there for him. And honestly, I'm glad I did. And the fact we made this documentary, like, we turned it into something fantastic. And I think he was appreciative that, we did it together. And I think we did it the best we could, honestly. And I think anybody that's been through these situations, you don't know how you'll react. You don't know how people will react. And I think you just have to get through it the best you can and laugh when you can. And, every day is intense. It just really is. It's just so unknown.
You said this is your first time doing a full hour set. How are you finding it?
So I feel like it's actually been really interesting for me because I've done, sorry if I said this is the first time, I've done it a few times in the States. But this is my first hour as a show. So I've really enjoyed doing the set and everything. But here it's so different because to be honest, it's been hard to get an audience at Edinburgh as an unknown person. So in the States, I performed it to, 100 people or more a bunch of times. And you just get that rolling energy and you can feel what's working and what's not working. And I think what I've realized about Edinburgh is although it is the biggest fringe festival, comedy festival in the world, it's maybe not the biggest ratio of
for
audience members.
Audience.
Yes. And so I wasn't really fully aware of that, I guess, which in hindsight should have understood more. Because I've done a few fringe festivals in the States with no marketing, no anything in like smaller places. And of course, everybody comes out for these like 4 days and you just easily fill your room. Whereas here it's been much more really trying to get people to come to the room. And obviously they're going to the people that are more known, which obviously makes complete sense. So I just, I've been doing it to read, like last night, for example, I did it to 4 lovely ladies, two groups of women, 2 friends, groups. And it was actually really fun because, I think women particularly do resonate with the story because you're talking about going through this type of stuff. And so it was a really lovely show, and they laughed a lot, so that was great. But it's just such a different vibe, just such a different learning, I guess.
How are you finding you're over a week in and you're basically doing the whole month? So how are you finding just the slog of doing this every day?
Well, I feel like honestly it's good, but I'm also working at the same time, and I'm realizing that is insane. Like, just dealing with my company and checking in and being available for work calls,
and the time delay.
And the time delay. So I'm often up really, really late in the evening or into the early morning to keep up with stuff. So I would say it's more of that combination of working and performing, which is a bit harder. But honestly, I've just decided I'm not cooking any home meals. I'm just trying to buy healthy food when I'm out, and save time in other ways. And just, it's been really lovely meeting people, and in a weird way, doing the show every night, it just gets easier and easier, because I am doing tweaks and updates and things as I'm noticing changes. But, you're just going through an hour of stand-up every day, and it gets more enjoyable in that way, because you just get to know the show. And as a non-full-time stand-up, that's just not something I normally do. So that opportunity is amazing, just to be able to, run it every day. So far I'm okay. I guess we're almost halfway through. And so I guess I'm holding it together right now. Maybe ask that question in a week and we'll see if it's the same answer. But yeah.
Well, that's what they say. Isn't it 2 weeks? A lot of people sort of start to flag.
I guess we'll see. Yeah, I've been trying to be really diligent with my, electrolytes and doing press ups. Like every time I put the kettle on, I'm trying to do like 5 press ups and squats and stuff like that. Just because I normally work out all the time, but you just can't work out as easily, it seems. So I'm just trying to fit it in.
Because you did have your workout videos during COVID, I see.
Yes, I have a few stupid workout videos. Yes, that was very fun to make. Yeah.
So your show is on at 7:15 every day, basically. Finishes on the 30th, so 30th is the last day.
Correct. Yes. Yep. And the Mash House. Yeah, I'll be there slinging stories about bears and other things.
What is the tea aspect? Because in the poster you're holding an electric knife, which I understand, but the tea isn't really in the movie much that I drew upon.
Yeah. So the tea theme is more from my show theme, and that's essentially that I don't drink and I don't do any drugs. Okay. And I remember during this whole time, everybody was like, you should start drinking wine or you should do whatever. I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. For someone that doesn't drink, I feel like my personality will go downhill because I'm not used to it. And I was like, I think I just need to find other ways to stay happy.
Yeah.
And so tea, which basically I lived with him in the ICU for a long time. And the first thing I did was I got a little fridge for my milk, and I got a kettle on top of that mini fridge. Okay. And I just always think of tea as like supportive. Like when, I know, a friend has something awful happen, it's always like, oh, come round, let's have some tea, let's have some cake, let's talk about it. And then I feel the opposite happens when something great happens, like exams or whatever. It's like, yeah, let's have some tea and cake, it's like really awesome. And so I felt like during this time, I just had so much tea, and you're having, like you mentioned, like, okay, well, the amputation is going to happen now. Oh, but now his vitals have improved. Oh, now another piece of his chest is being removed. Oh, but it looks like this is going well. And it was just this crazy roller coaster of happy, sad, crazy tea. And essentially, it's a through line of the story of how tea supports you at all stages. And at the end, of course, and I feel it's fine to share that, it is a happy tea story because he recovered basically as well as you possibly could. And he is thriving. And so it's just really lovely.
He's utilizing his body a lot more than most able-bodied people, I would say.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Because we see him surfing, we see him back to work, cutting, we see him building a house. Like, he is at everything, essentially.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. We worked so hard on that because they say that a lot of people don't get fully back to life, not because of their injuries, but more because of the mental attitude towards
Well, I think I remember hearing about heart attacks is one of those things people almost think like, oh, I'll just get back to how I was. And you never are. And this is something similar, I feel.
Yeah, exactly. And just that surfing thing. So Bethany Hamilton was the lady that had her arm bitten off by a shark.
Oh
And
my God.
her dad basically made her that surfing handle. It was kind of cool that was one of the first things I did when we were in the ICU after the amputation was I reached out to her dad to see if we could get one of the surfing handles. And he sent me the surfing handles. That was a really fun gift that I gave Eduardo when we were in the ICU. And it was just like, you're going to get back to surfing. We're working towards this. Here's the handle. And at some point, we'll get back out there. And yeah, obviously in the movie, you see his attempts and then final success at getting up with that surf handle. And it's just cool. Like those little nuggets of motivation and just, this is where we are now, but this is where we're going to be. And if every day we do these little steps, we can get there, and I'm going to be there with you, and we're going to do this together. It was honestly like a special time. Like it was so hard, but so special. And I think that is why there is comedy in it. Because even like you mentioned, the testicle thing, just like, obviously that sucks. That sucks in every way. No guy wants that. Obviously it's brutal. And on the other hand, it's happened. And he laughed about it and we laughed about it. And just our history of whatever it was just funny that he'd listed me as a signer for these operations when he was under anaesthetic. And his sister was also a signer. She just wasn't at the hospital at that time. And it was just so weird how that happened, right? You're just like, what a weird scenario of the ex-girlfriend that was cheated on signs it away. And so, yeah, I think just overall, it's just one of those stories that's just it's so insane. Like it sounds like I just made it up, like an electric bear and all these other things. Just it's not even like a normal way to get injured. It's an insane way to get injured, an insane injury, and then obviously a very long recovery.
Oh yeah, but it's an incredibly brutal injury. Like was there 2 exit wounds in his head?
Yes, there were 2 massive exit wounds in his head, and that went all the way to his skull. And honestly, that was one of the big parts of the wound care, because for months and months, it might have been more than months, like half a year or more, before they could fill it all in. You have these like foam pieces that are all stuck to his head, and his hair would grow so fast. I'd have to redo that like every day. And normally, apparently, you only have to redo it like once a week or something. But it was like, on the one hand, it's like, well, your hair's growing really fast, so that means you're healthy and you're okay. And on the other hand, you had to keep this suction thing, so any hair that would grow would ruin the suction. So I was just doing all this stuff. So yeah, it was just crazy time.
Well. As someone coming from the UK where healthcare is free, and he's originally from Mexico, like the healthcare looked like it would have cost a lot. Like, was it damaging for him, financially, or what way did that work out?
Yeah, so I mean, the headlines of that is, so we had insurance, so insurance did cover most of it. But you're right, it was into the millions. The healthcare. If he didn't have insurance, that would have been a nightmare. So he had insurance, but it didn't cover everything. There's actually a whole story I can tell you real quick on that, which was fascinating. So we had I think it was a couple of $100,000 that we owed, and we got really lucky that our house had gone up in value. And so I was like, I'm going to remortgage the house, because the debts were much higher interest rate than our mortgage. So I was like, I'm going to remortgage whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so because of the cancer, a lot of people apparently as well have this, where their smell like really changes during chemotherapy.
Yeah.
And so he made me rip out all the carpets. So I ripped out all the carpets from our house. They were disgusting and they were old. Anyway, you can't remortgage a house when it's not technically finished.
Oh.
And we had no money. Like literally, we were borrowing money off of family. We were absolutely screwed. And I tried to get the cheapest like office carpet, whatever I could find, and just couldn't find anything we could afford. Anyway, on one of these random trips into the forest that he would go on, he found this stash, like from years before, this stash of Playboy magazines from like the 1980s or something. Anyway, so I ended up making this Playboy magazine floor. I cut them all up into little like sheets. You can see it on my website. And basically I covered the whole house in these Playboy magazine floor. And when the guy came around from the bank, he was just like, technically it's finished, and he let us remortgage the house, and I managed to roll that debt into a lower interest debt, which was really good.
Goodness.
And what was really fascinating, guys, there's a lot of cartoons obviously in Playboy magazines and stuff, so there's a real mix of like women in cartoons, in ads and all this stuff. And when our friends with children would come over and like crawl on the floor, they'd always crawl over to the women with the biggest breasts. It was just really fascinating to watch, like kid after kid just head towards the breasts.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a really random thing to have learned. But yeah, and since then I've actually made loads of different floors in that way, not just with Playboy magazines, but with quotes and other things. And
is it with resins, or what way does it work?
Yeah, so basically I put essentially Elmer's glue, which is just a thick, just a normal like type of glue people use in school or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was like double-sided and used like a squeegee to get them really on the floor. And then I covered it all in a water-based polyurethane like you would a wood floor. Multiple layers of that. I mean, it took me ages. But yeah, on my website, I actually ended up making a video about how I did it because so many people asked me how to do it. And it's so cheap. It's so just cheap, right? Obviously, it's literally a bit of glue and a bit of covering. And I don't know, sometimes your brain has good ideas, I guess. And it was one of those moments of like, oh, thank goodness, that was a bit of a laugh. And, and it worked. We got out of financial hell, I guess.
So here's a very important question. What's your tea setup? Because the Americans aren't known for their tea.
My tea setup is actually over there. So I'll be honest with you. So I used to be very traditional English tea setup, which was, the
English breakfast tea, that would be? English
breakfast tea, builder's tea with the sugar, with the, the milk and everything.
Yeah.
But once I entered my 40s, I couldn't handle it anymore. I just kept putting on too much weight. And so I was like, right, I realized I was drinking about 300 calories of milk a day just because I was having so much tea. So I'm
probably
switched.
Something similar.
And so I was like, I'm just going to force myself on something else. So I started drinking just green tea in like a traditional grandma teapot with a grandma cozy and a little cup. And I absolutely love it. And it's a great way to have 0-calorie tea. And kind of get to eat more cake now, so that's quite cool. So I've basically separated out the milk calories and the cake calories. But yeah, that's my tea setup, and you'll be glad to know I have been manipulating Americans to join me in the tea, and and it's been going quite well. So a lot of my American friends now join me for tea.
Have you been back into English breakfast tea now you're back in Britain?
No, I mean, I would love to. It sounds crazy.
You could try one of less sugar in it.
I should do that.
Or is it the lactose is your main issue?
No, I think, honestly, it's just the sheer calories. I think I just love it so much that if I have one,
because I just have it with a lot
10.
of milk, but with no sugar.
Okay, so maybe I can try that. But I do. It sounds stupid, but at Christmas is my mental. My mental head space is
no eggnog
Christmas
for you,
is,
just
I
tea
hit
with sugar.
English. Yeah, I hit it really hard at Christmas. So we're a few months away, so I'll go nuts on it then.
Are you noticing much difference with UK crowds to American crowds?
Oh, such big differences. I've been told by so many people about that. And even a bunch of very famous stand-ups have told me a similar thing where they've said that they go on like a US tour and the laughter is just off the charts, like so loud, so heavy hitting. And then when they get back to the UK, they almost have to recalibrate what a good gig is And so, yes, I would say, especially with my show, because there are some, more intense jokes, there are some really quite dark jokes in the show. I've learned that I don't know, it could be that people just aren't finding it funny, and that's fine. And I can learn from that and improve. But it's also, you can see them kind of like, chuckling to themselves. But in America, that will be an absolute burst out laughter, bending over. And so that's been really interesting for me to like analyze that myself of like, is this just not a funny joke in the UK? Is it too much in the UK or whatever? Or is it just that people are much more reserved in showing? Like the other night I actually had a group in and it was weird. It was an oddly quiet group. And then afterwards, they like got chatting to me like individually and started sharing all the jokes that they loved, which was surprising because I was like, I felt like they didn't
Would
love
have been
it.
nice if you had laughed.
Exactly. And then I learned they all worked together. They did it and they didn't want to be seen to laugh in front of their boss or whatever. So you're like, okay, that makes sense. But it also, that's really hard when you're on stage and you're
just
like,
sometimes when I've seen newer acts, it feels like there's a good vibe in the room, but they're always just a bit like, no, didn't get a laugh. Next, like it almost reminds you of the performance of it all. Like, but yeah, it's I think famously the sort of colder it seems to get, like Denmark and stuff, they seem to enjoy a show and then don't laugh one bit.
I've also, I think it was Jessica Fosterque who mentioned something like that. She said like gigging in those areas is really, really tough.
Yeah. I think the big one difference is the Americans don't seem to pay attention as much, so you can be a bit more bang, 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 while the UK, they do love like a sort of Stuart Lee thing where there's like a whole overarching thing that then ties up at the end.
Yes, no, I agree with that. And I love that style of comedy as well. And honestly, I think that's why I'm doing this show as my first kind of Edinburgh show, because it is exactly that. It's a whole story that kind of ties in together at the end.
Because famously, they're sort of, Edinburgh likes a sort of serious, tragic one. But this is like tragically but positive. Do you think that's an issue you have? It's not just dad is dead.
Yeah, that's actually a great question because I've seen quite a few shows here actually that are, you're right, like there are some really intense stuff, like a lot of stories. I think I've seen 3 that are about women, you know, having major sexual assaults, that type of thing. So that's obviously very heavy. You know, issues with family members, whether that's alcoholism or abusive situations and stuff like that. So you're right, there's a lot of people here doing very harrowing shows with no real solution other than I feel okay about it now. Whereas you're right, I think this show, which honestly is quite shocking in a way, that you got this whole thing and then the outcome of it is actually pretty awesome. Like it basically is the best outcome it could be, I would say. Well,
because you were sort of cheated on, which isn't great. And then obviously what happens to him and the fact you sort of come back and that the fact he's sort of not stronger than ever, but he's doing incredibly well.
Oh, he's doing incredibly well. And also he does talk about how he actually doesn't think he would change it, which I think is actually quite genuine. We've, you know, because obviously I feel like he and I, you know, we can talk about anything. And when he's, you know, confided in me, and obviously we've had those really close emotional moments, he has said, like, I don't think I would change it, because what he got out of it, you do actually, it's absolutely mad what you get out of it. Like, for example, before we didn't know any other amputees. We didn't know this community. And suddenly you're meeting all these people. And what I would say about people that have gone through major stuff like this is they really get to know themselves, probably more than people that have never faced that moment. And so I think
your body quite often just feels like default movement. You don't think about it.
Exactly. And you just get on with life. And even just like, I don't know, the local shop's out of your favourite cake and it's suddenly like, oh, what a nightmare. Well, suddenly obviously you go through this. Who cares if you never have that cake again? You know what I mean? It's just like such a minor problem. And so I think the reframe that you get and the joy of life you get afterwards when you remember, oh, I was in agony, I was doing this, or, you know, all these things, and now you're out the other side. And so he does talk about how he actually feels like, given the option, he would still take the injury, and because of who he's become since it. So that's actually pretty amazing.
He's developed a lot more mentally. Because he did seem to be kind of like, he has a very sort of tragic upbringing, but it felt like everything kind of played into place. He's good looking, he's talented, he's making money. So it felt like he didn't really need to mature that much. Yeah,
no, I think it was definitely a bit of a wake up moment. He talks about that a lot in different public speaking and things that he does. And I mean, even obviously the cheating, like at the time he was cheating on me,
He almost didn't seem to comprehend it. The way he talks about it in the film, it's like, I find it strange that she'd be upset about things I did.
Yeah, no, agreed. So that's one of the jokes actually in my show. I just talk about how he told me, like, you know, like when someone's on a diet and they have like a cheeky bit of cake, it's just like, oh, I had a cheeky bit of another woman. So it was just so casual. Like he didn't seem to grasp like just like the dangers of his behavior. One from obviously a psychological point of view for me, but also just in terms of a health point of view as well, obviously. And so, yeah, he was just living this very cavalier lifestyle, which was very much about him and what he wanted, with no, looking back, I remember one night I was working on his taxes because he hates doing taxes, and I was working on his taxes.
Famously, Americans have to do their taxes themselves, even if they're not a business.
Correct. And so I was doing his taxes. It was like, and he actually did have a business, so I was going through all the itemizing everything, whatever, and then looking back,
everything's an expense. If American media has taught me anything,
everything's expense. Exactly. And looking back, it was like that was the night when he was with one of those other women, and I think I was just so annoyed, just like, you know what I mean, just like, F you, I was sat there working hard on your taxes and you were out cheating on me. That just sucks.
He's got it sorted.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. What a calendar. Like an amazing, I mean, he had it sorted. And then after all this stuff happened, I think he did realize, like, oh, that's actually really not a nice way to treat people.
Well, yeah, but his father was very absent. And then there was the whole, his father, because he was absent, and then was it around 15, 20 they met up again?
Yeah, I think it was 13, but yeah, don't quote me on that. It was sometime though, early teenager, you're correct. His dad basically left very early on in their life. And then, yeah, around early teenage years, he was like, we want to go meet Dad. And so they got to meet him. But unfortunately... So they're living in
America at this point, in Montana, and he's back in Mexico on an island.
He's in Mexico.
Fishing.
Yeah, Isla Mujeres is a beautiful little island off the coast of Mexico. So that's where his dad is from. And yeah, so they wanted to meet the dad. And so they did. But I think the dad, honestly, you see in the film, but he just wasn't a dad. He wasn't ready to be a dad.
He
was more of a friend.
Like a friend, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, as you saw in the movie, the dad brought drugs into their life when they were very young. And so suddenly you've got this guy who you obviously love and you want a relationship with because it's your dad, but the dad is quite a bad influence at that point in time. That did change later, I think, but at that point in time, it was pretty bad. And so they looked up to the wrong things, maybe. And so, got into that. But it's, and I think that's why it's such a wild story, honestly. And I think that's why I love it too, is just, we all often put things in boxes, don't we? Of like, this is what a friendship should be. This is what a relationship should be, and all these things. And this is more of a just, making it work type of story, whether that's him with his family or me looking after him as a caregiver or whatever it might be. It was just, piecemealing it to make the best it could be out of a bad situation without that kind of too much opinions, really. It's funny. Lots of people had strong opinions. They'd be like, oh, you should be in Thailand, like chilling out and having a laugh and just let him get on with it. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I'd be in Thailand worried that he wasn't being looked after, so.
You said you're very good at like designing houses and kitchens and stuff. I'm currently doing a kitchen. Any advice?
Yeah. Yes. So, I don't know if you'll like this or not. So basically, when I was in my kitchen, I needed an kitchen island. And
see, I'm going against an island. I don't think I have the room. But I know everybody loves an island.
Yeah, so it was, so maybe, I don't know if this could be relevant still, but basically I didn't want an island because they're so expensive and so boring. And so I went and bought for $300, I bought a VW Beetle with no engine in it. And I turned that into my kitchen island. So in my kitchen, I have a VW Beetle as my kitchen island. Is it upside down?
Is that the way it works?
No, it's so basically what we did is cut the back end off of it. So it's just the front part of it, and removed the bonnet area and made that into a seating area. And then across the back, so cut off the lid of the whole thing and then put a butcher's block across. So the windshield and everything is still there. The mirror is still there and all that stuff. But then and the door's still open. So that's quite cool. So you can like stuff all your, blenders and stuff in there, and then put a butcher's block on the back. And the thing I love about it is that it was so cheap compared to an actual island.
Yes.
And it looks absolutely mad. I love it. It's just weird. So yeah, so I would say stuff like that was just fun. But in terms of just a kitchen design, I think this is my personal opinion. I think just design it for yourself, because I feel like so many people all of the houses are the same. Everybody's house is the same because they're always thinking about value, and they're always thinking about when it comes to sell the house or whatever. And I think obviously we all do care about money and all these things, but I would just design it for you, like your colors, your layout, like whatever you love. And then if it is slightly less value in the future, then deal with it then. But I find it interesting that so many people like build something to live in for a decade or more, and they're designing it for what they think people in the future might potentially like to buy. And you're like, just make it yours. So, I mean, I'm pretty confident that having a car in the middle of my kitchen is going to have to be removed before I sell my house. And that's okay. I'm going to deal with it when that happens. But for now, every day, I mean, I've had it in there like 7 or 8 years now. I love it. It's just fun.
Have you found doing this show has helped you with the trauma of the whole incident?
I would say that I processed most of that a long time ago. I think is the truth. And in a way, maybe that is why I'm already doing the comedy about it. Yeah. I do think that doing the show, though, it's nice to share your story. That makes sense. Like in the documentary, it's even like, actually, it's funny because in the documentary, he talks about cheating on me and he implies it's like 3 times. Well, it's actually like 8 different women multiple times over years.
I thought the way the show made it out, like it was just what he did when you weren't in sight.
Well, it was when I wasn't in sight, to be fair. But it's just fun to be like, oh no, actually it was 8 times over years rather than 3 times over, and it's just like those little things where, like when you obviously have signed away your rights to the documentary and stuff, like it didn't have any, control over that. So you couldn't really be like, oh, well, can you tell the truth there? Because that's a bit unfair, that whatever. And so it's just really nice to be able to be like, oh, this is it. And I've also had people say over the time of like, oh, you, put your life on hold for other reasons. Like you didn't know what you wanted to do with your life, whatever. And it's really fun just to be able to share the truth. And the truth is that, and I say this in my show, that like, it's like a moment in the show where it just gets really serious for a moment. And I just share the truth, which is I want to be there for him. Like I spent the last 5 years of my life with him. And I'm basically looking at someone who looks like they're in a butcher shop. You know what I mean? Like he has had so much of his body removed.
Because there's a point where he's like poking his finger inside his own calf. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. And you can, and like when you've just had your arm cut off, like they leave it open. It's very strange. Something you wouldn't really necessarily think about. They don't close it immediately because they need to see if it's infected. So they literally cut your arm off and you've got a bone sticking out the end. And that's just your reality. And like being there with him for that, processing that with him, I will never regret that. I'll never forget it either. And I think that just being able to be in the show and just being able to share, like, no, it wasn't because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. It was like, I'm pretty sure if anybody was in my situation, you just have this moment of absolute grounding of just, wow. This is major. And so it's nice to be able to share those realities rather than people just infer whatever they infer from the documentary.
I watched it with my mum, and one problem is she's a nurse, and she you know how sometimes nurses can be a bit macabre?
Yeah, totally, 100%.
She kept just saying through the whole thing, he's very lucky, he's still got his elbow, and I was like, I don't think he's lucky, Mum.
I mean, so that was another reason why I had to be his caregiver for so long, because both of his elbows did blow out. So they had, and obviously it's hard, anybody that's had a cut on the, on their knuckle is a nightmare, isn't it? Just like covering, So both of his elbows were just blown out. The bones were there, but nothing else. And so then he had one hand obviously removed, so he couldn't use that hand, and the other one had to be splintered completely straight for ages. So obviously he couldn't do anything really. So that was another reason why I was his caregiver. But yeah, you just realize that skin on the elbow is really hard to get it to grow back, and it was graft after graft after graft to get it to a good place. And it's almost, honestly, it's like a little piece of art almost, his elbow, because there were so many like little grafts over time as it finally built back up. But yeah, it's just those things that I don't know, you just never even think about, right? And then you're in there and you're learning all this stuff. And so, yeah, your mum basically is 100% right. The elbows were a massive problem, but ultimately worked out great.
Okay, you're not going to do what Elton John did. He recently got his kneecap removed and made jewelry out of it.
I mean, I could imagine that would have been something that Ed would do. But no, I think all that stuff's long gone now.
Well, yeah, it just reminds me of that other documentary where the man had his leg was removed in an airplane crash.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that one.
He kept his leg in, like, you know, what are those storage lots?
Mm.
He then he didn't pay his deposits on it, so then it got sold to a random who bought the whole thing. And then there was the whole legal dispute between who owns the leg, because the man's technically bought all of the contents and he had it like a freak show at the side of the road, like, come look at this severed leg. Yes.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's intense. Yeah. So we actually tried to keep his hand, but we weren't allowed to keep the hand because of biohazard risks. He did ask the hand. That's actually a part of the show. I talk about the awkwardness of him tasking me with trying to keep the hand. It was one of the most awkward things. So no, luckily, it was unbelievably lucky. He was right-handed. So he lost his left hand. It just so happened that when you're out in the wilderness, in Montana, you always have bear spray, and because of all the bears, so you have your bear spray on your right hip so that you've got easy, immediate access. And so he had his wilderness knife on his left hip, and so he went to tilt the bear's head. He wanted to tilt it using the knife, and so he just got very lucky, honestly. Wow, so that was actually, I just
assumed it was his dominant hand he had lost, and he was learning to be right-handed.
No, it was, he was right-handed. So that was, and honestly, when you're in these places, you obviously meet so many people with different injuries, and you are like calibrating what's the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And I think that was one of them. It was like, okay, you've lost your hand. Let's just be grateful it wasn't the dominant hand, because obviously a lot of people had lost their dominant hand, and that's even obviously harder. So it was, a weird little moment of success, I guess, amongst everything.
Oh, wonderful. Is there anything about the show before we go?
It's a storytelling stand-up show, so it is, obviously a story, but there is a lot of humor in it as well. And yeah, if you're extremely squeamish, it probably is not the show for you. But if you enjoy just honestly like life and love and stories of friendship and recovery, it is a really lovely show with a very happy ending. And I feel like medical staff or anybody that's an adventurer and people like that would particularly enjoy the show, because it really does get to the depths of what it's like to deal with these types of things and live a life like that.
So that is Jennifer Jane. Happy Tea, which is on at 7:15, pretty much every day except the 31st. Forget your dead dad. Think more about your nearly dead ex or boyfriend.
Perfect summary.
Any other wee plug you'd like to do for it, or anything?
No, I think that's it. Please come along, and I'd love to meet you and share the story and make you laugh.
Thank you everyone for listening. Jennifer Jane's show Happy Tea is available to watch just at the Sniffers Room, just at the Tonic at the Mash House at Edinburgh every day this month except the 31st. So please catch it while you can. Hopefully I'll get to see it myself. It is on at 7:15, if I am correct. Yes, 7:15. It lasts an hour. It's got very good reviews. And if you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, but and give it thumbs up, because no one, I don't think, has yet, and you would massively help me. And stay tuned, because there'll probably be one next week. Here's all hoping. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to Jennifer Jane. Wonderful guest, and I hope everything goes well for her. Ciao, everyone. Bye. Yes, it's a real bye this time.